What's up guys, and welcome to a new Trailblazer video, and today we're talking relics once again. I've had a few people ask me which 6 relics I'm going to be picking and why, so we're going to go ahead and go through that right now. We're currently at 3,600 points, which is right around what we finished my previous progress video 2 with. And so far we have 3 relics unlocked, and I went with Skilling Prodigy, which is the plus 12 relic, Last Recall, which gives you a teleporting crystal, which teleports you back to the previous location that you teleported from as long as it's not an instance. And the third one I picked was Fluid Strikes, and this is basically the melee of the tier 3 relics. But firstly, I decided to go with the Skilling Prodigy relic, and that is because I wanted the early game competitive advantage. Basically, I only kind of got to take advantage of this on day 1 because day 2 and 3 I didn't get nearly as much playing time as I would have liked. Ultimately, I am behind a lot of the high-end competition that did use the relic properly, but it's not too much of a big deal to me because I know I'll finish with a great chunk of points toward the end of the league. I greatly enjoy using this relic and being able to do things far higher than the level that I actually am. And one of the biggest cons is that people say that it becomes completely useless once you get to 87 or once you unlock the highest tier content and it no longer matters at all because it doesn't help you do anything. Personally, I'm not going to be maxing out on this league. I've said it in plenty of other videos, and I'll say it in this one just in case you haven't seen any of the other ones. I'm going to be going with a majorly PVM focus for this entire league for a majority of my points. I'm not going to be doing 25 mils to get my points. So ultimately, doing this relic and taking the plus 12 advantage is only going to benefit me, and it's not even going to hurt me in the long run. And now the reason I went with Last Recall for my second tier relic. And honestly, I'm glad I changed. Going into the league, I fully expected, without knowing what Last Recall was, that I was probably going to be going with Eternal Jeweler because we had a assumption that there was going to be an infinite jewelry relic, and I thought that thing was going to be incredibly powerful. It is definitely incredibly powerful, but this Last Recall is even more powerful, especially in terms of saving me time on PVM, and that's my main reason for choosing this. For instance, let's just say I teleport out. I leave the God Wars dungeon room to get into just the God Wars dungeon area. I can teleport out from there, re-gear, and then literally teleport straight back to that location without having to do any of the other running, and I can just start getting kill count again right away. And that is the main reason I chose this. I am going to absolutely love saving all of that time between my PVM trips. It's just going to be back to back to back of continuously doing more PVM. And that's my favorite part. It's going to save a lot of time banking. That is definitely the main reason I went with it. And now for the tier 3 relic, I had a hard decision on this one going between the quick shot for the range and the melee. But ultimately, I feel like the melee was more beneficial for more content. I'm going to be doing a bunch of Slayer as well as a bunch of bossing, and I feel like melee is going to be the predominant usage between all of them across the board. I'm also going to be doing TOB because I have Morytania unlocked, and if I get a scythe with this relic, it's going to be absolutely disgusting. So that is one thing I'm kind of banking on as well. It was hard to overlook the quick shot because I think it's going to be incredibly good, but since I'm not picking the blowpipe, I feel like the melee relic was a great way to go. Not to mention you also have 15% less damage from all sources, and you regenerate health 4 times faster. So not only is it great for melee, but it's also pretty decent for just taking a little bit less damage and healing a little bit quicker. So it's going to help me be a little tankier as well. Now moving on to the 4th relic, I am going to be going with Unnatural Selection. As I said earlier, I'm going to be doing a lot of Slayer, and these are going to help me gain so much more XP from getting consistent superiors. Also, hopefully I pick up an Imbued Heart pretty easily. Not to mention the most important part of this relic, which is the fact that you get to choose your own task. So ultimately, I'll be able to do all the tasks I want to and never have to worry about doing a task that I don't feel like doing right then. And personally, I'm not a big person for completing clue scrolls. I do love completing clue scrolls sometimes, but I don't love it enough that I would do it constantly all day. And in this league, clue scrolls to me are far less valuable with the areas I have unlocked. And something like Zaya, where clue scroll rewards have so much more value because the end game gear, and until you get to Chambers of Zarek, really isn't that great. Whereas in this league, I have a perfect progression of gear from D-Hide going to then Barrow's gear, to then God Wars, to then TOB/Nightmare. I have a really good layout of how I can get best in slot gear that doesn't necessarily need to involve getting clue scroll gear. But now moving on to the tier 5 and 6. Especially the tier 5 is one of the big ones that people have a big hard decision on trying to decide between. There are definitely some very good qualities for all of them, and they will massively play into your playstyle. And that's exactly the case for me, and that's why I will be going with the Botanist. But before I jump into this one, I actually do have a full in-depth analysis for the tier 5. I will link that down in the description below if you need to check that out. But the Botanist gives farming cycles, making them grow 5 times faster. Not only that, but you also get double resources from them, which will make getting herbs so much easier for herb lore. And not only are herbs going to be easier to get, but we will also automatically make 4-dose potions with every single potion, and there's a 95% chance of saving your secondary. To me, as a PVMer, this relic is up and by far the best in comparison to Infernal Gathering and Equilibrium. In my opinion, I feel like Equilibrium might be the best in terms of maxing. I feel like it 100% is the best because it impacts far more skills than the Botanist would, or even Infernal Gathering. But when my eyes aren't set on maxing and they're much more set on doing as much PVM, the Botanist is by far going to save me more time in the long run. And now moving on to the final of the tier 6s, I will be going with Weapon Specialist. And what this relic does is all of your attacks have 10% increased accuracy and damage. One thing I do want to know is that is across all 3 relics, so that's not something special to this one. But what is special to this one is that every 30 seconds, instead of your special attack going up 10%, it will go up 30. And every single special attack weapon, if it isn't under 20%, will only take 20%. For example, a Ceradoman Godsword, a special attack that normally takes 50%, will only take 20, allowing me to use it 5 times per special attack bar, and then I could use it again every single 30 seconds, roughly, because every minute I would technically be able to use it 3 times. I would basically almost have infinite prayer and health on most Slayer tasks, so that's going to be an absolutely insane thing to have. Not to mention using something like a Bando's Godsword at other bosses. In order to make their defense lower, you're going to be able to make it so much lower than normal by constantly speccing it and having more specs to use over your entire trip. I feel like that relic's going to come massively to my advantage once I do unlock it, and I can't wait to try it out with something like the Godswords. But that's going to do it for this video. This one's going to be a little shorter, just to give those people a little more in-depth perspective on the 6 relics I'm going to be choosing for my PVM path, and ultimately, hopefully, my path to either the Dragon or the Rune Cup with thousands of boss kills in this league. But that'll do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, consider dropping a like if you enjoyed, or subscribing if you haven't already. Also, check out my Twitch. The link will be in the description as well. And hopefully I see you guys on a stream or a future video. Peace.